Norway is ultimately at the mercy of the success or failure of the euro and the eurozone. Oil is a key export, and with the prices down significantly from the peak, revenues are also subdued. Economic growth is declining and unemployment has increased. Will Norway break the cycle? You came here for the truth. Let's look into Norway today. Hello to all my friends from Norway. I'm always trying to look up information for particular countries. This is probably one of the only channels where you see particular country analysis. I'm just going to show a few points. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just some information that I was able to dig up. Let's get into it right away. Very, very crucial. Digging deeper and deeper. We're looking at this out of Bloomberg. Norway plans to increase withdrawals from its wealth fund next year amid the oil's slump. That's key, because when you see this decline occurring, depending on what it's for, in this case, you're trying to take money from citizens, perhaps it's business investment, and you then have to spread that somewhere else. You know that there is a problem. And Norway is not necessarily to blame specifically, because you remember this is a global problem. And then you look at the disaster that Europe is right now. I would say Norway's doing a lot better than many of the other countries, but it's still a problem that they need to face. It's the ripple effect. Look, for example, you see Canada and the US. If Canada was doing swimmingly well, when you see that 80+% of the exports, depending on where you look, will go to the US. If the US is doing bad, then obviously perhaps they're not going to purchase a lot from Canada. Perhaps, the exchange rates make a big difference and everything else. So this is something that needs to be seen. Not just the country itself, but the ripple effect. It is very, very key to understand that. Let's go on. Norway's GDP. Now, this is something that fluctuates over the years. But since the financial crisis, just like most countries, the GDP had risen. And then you get to a point where for a few years now, there's an average here, but we have seen a decline. It's been staggering. Just like the GDP in any country, you'll see that in certain quarters they like to pull it up, and then other quarters they let it drop. They don't ever want to have two consecutive quarters of negative output here. So when you see that, that's why there's always sort of a up and down, even though it seems more realistic that it would be a much slower pace. Regardless, anyway, you're seeing the GDP trending downward, and it needs to really change pace or they are going to have some problems. This is the stock market, an index here, looking at it anyway. And you can see, though, that over the years, this is a 5-year chart, you can see clearly it has risen. And it is no different than a lot of the other stock markets around, the US, for example, most notably, where the stock market has increased. Why? Because savings accounts are dismal. When you see the amount of return that you'll get, people are being pushed into investments they traditionally would not be into. They're getting, not individuals, but you see a lot of these investment companies getting into the junk bonds and getting into everything that it could be risky, could be something that you necessarily wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, and then you have to get into it. That's the stock market. Besides all of the obvious manipulation, the central banks and investments inside of the stock markets directly, you see that individuals are seeking better returns, and investment companies as well. So the stock market is obviously seeing some of that. Look at the unemployment rate. Now, yes, on the short term, we have seen a decline. There's no doubt about that. But look where it came from. Since the financial crisis, while the stock market is rising, you're seeing unemployment increase. This is something that it's really takes a lot to really look at, because when you see other countries, the US, for example, unemployment has been declining. The fake unemployment rate that they show has been declining while the stock market is increasing. So a different situation here in Norway, that's for sure. But ultimately, when you see unemployment at about 5% or so, you'll have to suggest that that is low in comparison to a lot of other countries. Compare that to a lot of areas in Europe. It's definitely much lower. But look where it was prior to the financial crisis. I mean, practically everyone had employment at this time. And since the financial crisis, it has gone twice as bad. This here is just a little bit of information. It's a report out of the IMF talking about Norway's situation, and in fact many other countries, about the negative interest rate policy. And while it says that they do not have negative interest rates directly in Norway, let me just read it to you here. Central banks in Norway, Japan, and Hungary lowered only their deposit rate for excess bank reserves while keeping the main policy rate in positive territory. While some central banks adopted the negative interest rate policy to counter low inflation, others have focused on mitigating spillover effects from the unconventional monetary policy. That's right, it's called printing and negative interest rates. So that's just something I wanted to mention. Just wanted to give you an overview of what's happening. I do believe that all countries, if they're not going towards a negative interest rate, they are still manipulating. They are using the open market operations and whatever other countries like to do, and manipulate these interest rates to what serves them best, not allowing the free market to do so, and ultimately destroying their currencies. Look at this right here. This is the reserve rate. What you're seeing here is not the bank lending rate, not the equivalent of the Fed funds rate, but it's still important to note that a lot of Europe, and then you look at Japan, you look at other places where they have gone into the negative territory. It doesn't matter. All I'm trying to show here is that the rates at which these central banks are playing with are so far below where they should be. If you were to increase interest rates, without looking at obviously the destructive action that would cause, people, individuals would want to save money in their banks. And that's a good thing, obviously, for the banks who then use it for the fractional reserve banking, but they don't look at it like that, ultimately. And last but not least, just wanted to show you this. There's a boom going on in Norway, just like there is in areas like Canada, where you see never before have house prices in Norway risen so much in 1 year. House prices increased by an average of 8.3% in 2016 compared to the previous year. The biggest annual increase ever. Additionally, property prices were 12.8% higher in December than December 2015, the biggest growth for any 12-month period ever. This is all because you can get real estate loans, mortgages for a cheap price compared to where they were years ago. It's the same situation that's going on in Canada as well. There are many reasons why this is happening. The same thing in Canada. It's not just because interest rates are low, but when people feel that they're not going to feel safe, maybe in stocks, maybe they don't want to put their money in mutual funds, they're investing, and they're doing so. They're buying it in real estate, they're purchasing homes, they're purchasing second homes, they're getting into different avenues into the real estate market, believing that it's going to go up and up and up and up, and perhaps it's doing so at this time. But because of the manipulation going on, do not believe that anything that we're seeing today is natural, that is real, that this isn't all because of central banks' ridiculous, dangerous policies that they are applying globally. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. You can actually look through the book. If you go over to Amazon, they have this look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care. just a quick little note on the side. I really wanted to know from you, if you've made it to the end of the video, I'm sure you're one of the faithful subscribers here. I want to know, let me know if you appreciate the fact that this is a very transparent program. I'm not, all polished. I'm not, coming up here and having a prepared speech written. I try to say what I have an idea of things. I spend literally, sometimes I'll spend as much as 3 hours to provide a 10-minute video. I know it doesn't seem like that sometimes, but perhaps my delivery isn't the best sometimes, but I'm trying. This is coming from the heart. I hope you appreciate that. I hope you appreciate the transparency here, the things that I tell you that are going on behind the scenes. I want to let you know about that. I'm trying to make this a very open thing. I'm a student as well. A lot of people, they come on here, they come on YouTube or maybe the mainstream media or anything else, or the so-called king of the alternative news, claiming that they're the best, they're getting this many views all the time, claiming all this and that. Whereas I'm saying, look, I'm a student as well. I read up on this information every single day of my life, and I'm trying to learn more and more and more and more, and then I bring that information to you. I try to condense down what I've learned into very short videos. I hope you appreciate that, and that's all I wanted to say. Let me know. Take care.